This story begins in the ruins of a battle. Seo Gang Yu, who was able to defeat the villain, tried his best to restrain himself from killing him. Seeing this, the villain laughed. After that, the man looked to the right and said that Seo Gang Yu was no different from the rest of the worthless idiots. The bodies of the other heroes lay around. Hearing these words, Seo Gang Yu looked him straight in the eyes and ordered him to shut up. The villain meanwhile laughed and said that the only way to stop the destruction was to finish him off. However, So Gang Yu looked into his eyes and said that he would never become like him in life, because he promised in his command that he would not break the law and the death penalty would be carried out according to the law. However, in the future, Seo Gang Yu will regret this action, because the villain should have been killed back then. The next day, the news reported that Huang Sung-hwan, the worst thug in history who made the world tremble in horror, had been captured and sentenced to death. At this point, the prisoner was placed in a powerful suppression device, and they sent him to the 5th lower level of a special prison for villains called Ruculus. And also, some of the brave heroes who fought hand-in-hand with Su Kang Yu against this villain died in the battle. That's why they will pass tonight. Joint Funeral of Fallen Heroes of Justice. Seo Gang Yu was beside himself when he heard this news. However, suddenly someone behind him turned off the TV. Looking back, Seo Gang Yu saw his brother, inspector of the Ruculus prison, standing in front of him. The guy said with a smile on his face that Seo Gang Yu should rest more while he recovers and not watch bad news. After that, brother sat down on a chair, and Seo Gang Yu said that he thought he should have personally taken down the blonde guy. The inspector looked at his brother and asked if he had already forgotten his own promise. Seo Gang Yu immediately remembered his mentor, who told me that their duty is to protect people and not to shed blood, and they have no right to decide other people's lives, even if they belong to criminals. After all, they also have the opportunity to appear in court. Seo Gang Yu then said that it was quite logical. However, what should he do if suddenly danger threatened them? To which his boss said that Seo Gang Yu must swear to everyone here that he would not hurt anyone under any circumstances. The inspector reminded his brother of these words and stated that he partly agreed with her, and only legal authorities should choose the measure of restraint. After that, the inspector looked at his brother and said that the information was of course secret, but he wanted to share it. Next week, Huang would be executed, and his presence would be mandatory. After this, the inspector was silent for a while and said that his brother had done an excellent job, and now he should just rely on his colleagues. With these words, the inspector stood up and extended his hand to his brother, saying that he would lead his comrades on their final journey. Let's fast forward a week into the future. On the day when the tragedy was supposed to happen, our hero's brother passed away. Seo Gang Yu, standing at his funeral, couldn't believe his eyes. After all, in the end, the criminal who buried a bunch of innocent souls remained unharmed, and the worker of righteousness disappeared from this life forever. The first few days after his death, Seo Gang Yu spent time at his brother's memorial site. Suddenly, a woman entered the room where he was sitting and greeted him with the words that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. This woman was the warden of the Ruculus prison. The warden said that they needed to talk about something important. After that, Seo Gang Yu secluded himself with her in her office, and she pulled out the records of the incident to him. The woman said that something terrible happened while Huang was being escorted to execution. That day, he was led, completely shackled, to his death penalty. However, unexpectedly, the villain laughed and looked at the inspector. After that, the villain said that the inspector looked very much like the guy who detained him. He thought for a bit and asked, "Are they really brothers?" The inspector didn't notice anything, and the guy with white hair continued to laugh and said that he saw that the inspector didn't even have superpowers. No, that's probably why he decided to get a job here as a security guard. The inspector ignored all these words. However, the blonde man did not calm down and continued to dump. How does the inspector feel? Watching other people's murders? This time, the inspector couldn't hold back and asked what the villain meant, to which Huang replied that the inspector was actually also the executioner. And this means that he has already killed many people. The inspector didn't answer, but the villain said that he probably should feel lighter when Fox is in the life of criminals. After this, the villain laughed and said that from his slightest touch, everything around bursts like soap bubbles, and it is simply amazing. The inspector immediately replied that he saw nothing admirable in this, and added that, on the contrary, his mind was constantly tormented by guilt for what he had done, although he was only pressing a button, destroying the vile bastards. And after that, every night he suffers from nightmares where the prisoners torture him. The guy with white hair asked with a smile why the inspector doesn't quit in that case, to which the inspector proudly replied that someone would have to bear this burden anyway, and it would be better if it were him. Finally, When everything was ready, the inspector asked if the villain had any parting words, to which the guy with white hair said that he only had one small question. After a short pause, the villain asked which of them was the older brother. The inspector did not answer this question and said that it was time for them to get started. After the countdown, they all pressed the button at the same time. And at this point, the recording ends. Seo Gang-yu looked at the interference in surprise and asked what happened next, to which the warden said that exactly at the moment of punishment, the electricity in the entire prison went out. This probably happened due to an unexpected surge of an unknown electromagnetic pulse, and as soon as the electricity went out, the villain was able to escape from the electric chair and, smiling evilly, said that only So Gang-yu was worthy of finishing him off. Immediately after this, the villain stood up and used his abilities. The guards immediately radioed that they needed reinforcements because the convict had broken the suppression equipment. Suddenly, one of the guards felt someone's hand on his shoulder. He looked around and saw that it was the villain. Immediately after that, his body burst like a soap bubble. Our hero's brother looked at all this, unable to move. All his friends died before his eyes. And after that, the villain slowly approached him with the words that he had come to a certain conclusion. When the villain was very close, he said that he realized that the inspector was most likely the older brother. Finally, the inspector found the strength to resist and, swinging his baton, prepared to hit the guy. However, the villain burst the inspector's hand with one touch. The inspector fell to his knees. However, he endured the pain and grabbed the baton with his other hand, and he swung and attacked his enemy, shouting that justice must prevail. However, immediately after these words, he was killed. Laughing, the villain said that if he couldn't get an answer from this guy, he would try his younger brother. Seo Gang-yu listened to the end of this story in surprise. Meanwhile, the prison warden continued to talk about how these electromagnetic waves affected all the prisoners' devices and thus freed them. She also added that the only good news was that they had managed to prevent a mass escape. However, many ordinary people were stuck side by side with these monsters. Seo Gang-yu seemed to look ahead and ask whose doing this was, to which the boss replied that this was still being investigated. After that, she said that she apologized for asking for a difficult favor right after the funeral of a relative. However, he must help them suppress the rebellion. Seo Gang-yu looked at her with confident eyes and said that he would of course help, but with one condition. After that, he remembered what his comrades always told him, that heroes should protect people without shedding the blood of others. And his brother, who held the position of officer, he was also blindly convinced of the right of the law to decide the fate of a person. There is a category of people who carry out death sentences. They call themselves punishers. Therefore, the only condition that Seo Gang-yu asked for was to enter the prison, not as a hero, but as an executioner. As soon as Seo Gang-yu entered, he immediately said that from now on he was their new caretaker, and his name was Seo Gang-yu. The prisoners looked at him in surprise and asked, "Why the hell did the hero put on the clothes of an ordinary officer?" Seo Gang-yu didn't respond, and the monsters immediately pounced on him. Smiling, Seo Gang-yu finished off the first one, who rushed at him with one blow. And then the shockwave destroyed several more prisoners. After a few more blows, the floor was covered in the prisoners' blood. The rest looked at their comrades and could not believe that this had happened. Meanwhile, Seo Gang-yu used his walkie-talkie to check the microphone. After this, he announced to the loudspeaker that, according to the order of the authorities, every offender from the first basement floor to the 5th lower level will be killed by the hand of the executioner. The white-haired villain who was sitting on the 5th lower level immediately smiled upon hearing this news and said that he had been waiting for a long time. The other prisoners began to slowly approach the officer and ask why he decided to kill them if they were ordered to sit in captivity. To which Seo Gang-yu replied that after killing so many people, they could not expect such a light punishment. Some of them started shouting that they had only killed a few people, so the officer had no right to decide their fate. After all, they were the same people as everyone else. Meanwhile, a man was found in the crowd who decided that by taking advantage of the commotion while the officer was distracted by other prisoners, he could try to escape in an instant. After that, he headed towards the exit at great speed, and he managed to get ahead of our hero for a second. However, Seo Gang-yu immediately noticed this and pinned him to the ground with one blow. Looking at the other prisoners, he said that he would give them the right to choose, or they calmly put on the control devices and return to their cells where they will await their turn, or they will simply be killed by the officer right then and there. Suddenly, a dark-skinned man appeared in the crowd and said that everyone here would choose the last option, because they would die anyway, and it would be better to let it be the path of the rebellion, and in that case, it would be better to simply conduct reasonable negotiations. Seo Gang Yu immediately shouted that this was not a negotiation, but only his mercy. Hearing this, the others began to worry, because they could not believe that someone had appeared who was going to kill them all, and could only prolong it a little. And in life, they were expecting a prison guard and not a hero of equality. Some of them decided that it would be better to wear a controller. Suddenly, the dark-skinned guy screamed at the top of his lungs. He got everyone's attention and said that the rest should focus, because there was no need to make a deal with a strong person even if that person was a hero of equality, because there was only one of him. After this, the man stated that in his youth, he was able to kill a Tier 2 heroine through teamwork. He smiled broadly and said that they had nothing to worry about because they could simply kill the officer and regain their freedom. Seo Gang Yu looked at this guy with a smile and said that he was glad that he entered the leader of this garbage dump. Ruckulous Prison separates prisoners according to their danger level, with the murderers on the first floor, over 300 of them. In the basement of the first floor, there are 100 criminals who have put the city in danger. In the basement of the second floor, there are more than 30 people who have put the village in danger. In the basement of the third floor, there are 10 people who have endangered the state. In the basement of the fourth floor, there are 5 people who have endangered the continent. And in the basement of the fifth floor, there are 3 people who were able to endanger the entire world. Yesterday, Seo Gang Yu heard all this from the warden of the prison, who said that the number of those he would have to deal with was much smaller because the prisoners in the basement of the second and fifth floors were not happy with each other's company. But anyway, the first floor was unique because there was unity there. On this floor is Halison. He has a special skill that gives strength to his comrades through the sound he makes. Now, Seo Gang Yu was standing in front of him and talking about how he had attacked the hospital with 30 accomplices and killed 7 people, along with the second-tier heroine Hesa. As soon as the man heard this, he said that, in fact, he killed as many as 9 people because the heroine was pregnant with twins at that moment. Seo Gang Yu immediately turned to the prison warden via walkie-talkie and said that he would definitely have to use force, so he wanted to know how strong the prison was, to which the warden immediately replied that no matter what he did, the prison would be able to withstand all his actions. Seo Gang Yu hung up and said that in that case there was no point in holding back. Haesoi, hearing this, laughed and said that he knew who was standing in front of him and that this guy had not shown himself to be a hero of equality. And he was able to catch Huang because he used his comrades as bait. After this, the man announced with a smile that today they would send him to his comrades. After finishing his speech, he used his superpower. All the other prisoners immediately received a huge surge of strength. As soon as this happened, they all attacked our hero together. However, Seo Gang Yu only took one step forward, and then he created an incredible blast wave that threw back all the other prisoners. After that, Seo Gang Yu jumped up, and in a split second at great speed, he amazed everyone with his blow. All this took no more than 1/100th of a second. The participants of the uprising could not believe that this happened to them, and just a few seconds later, they all said goodbye to their lives after suffering severe injuries. Seo Gang Yu walked forward and transmitted over the radio that the massacre on the first floor was over and it was time to move on to the punishment cells. As he continued walking, he gave everyone he met a choice to wear the device or die. He immediately killed those who disagreed with him. Finally, Seo Gang Yu reached the solitary confinement cells. The man sitting opposite the entrance said that he had waited 3 whole years for Seo Gang Yu to return. It was Chok Fil-do, convicted of cannibalism and murder. The man immediately stood up and said that he didn't expect that Seo Gang Yu decided to change jobs. Seo Gang Yu looked into his eyes and said that the man must choose whether to die today or not. Hearing these words, the man began to remove the bandage and say that if he had known that they would meet, he would have prepared better. Seo Gang Yu remembered how he detained this man and activated his ability with the words that if he did not give an answer, Seo Gang Yu would consider that the man chose death right now. The guy laughed and said that it would be better to tell why he killed all his victims. However, Seo Gang Yu immediately cut off his head at full speed and said that he was not interested. As he was dying, the man said he wanted to be remembered. After this, he reappeared completely whole and added that in order to become the most memorable person in their lives, they had to die by his hand. This guy's ability is hallucinations. Chalk laughed and said that he could show the officer how he killed each of them. But while he was saying this, he had already lost his arm. The man immediately grabbed his wound and the officer asked, "Is it really that hard for him to cope with his long isolation?" After this, the officer created a blade with the help of his ability and said that he was already tired of this criminal's chatter. Chalk realized that he couldn't win and said that he wanted to ask one last thing, a little wolf cub. He asked if Seo Gang Yu remembered the people he killed. Seo Gangyu briefly replied that he didn't remember because none of them were worthy of remaining in his memory, especially such scum as murderers. However, while he was saying this, the criminal used his abilities and showed the officer his dead comrades. Seo Gangyu stopped for a second when he saw his entire team. Seo Gangyu immediately rushed at the illusions and cut them down. After that, he stood in front of the prisoner and asked me if this was all he could do with his ability. The prisoner said that he couldn't believe that he had cut down his comrades so easily, to which Seo Gangyu replied that they were just illusions, after which he finished off the prisoner. Finally, Seo Gangyu added that he is no longer a hero. Now he is just a prison guard. As he was dying, the prisoner said that Seo Gangyu was no longer just a warden, but a real monster, just like Huang Sung-hwan. Meanwhile, on the very bottom floor, Huang was sitting, already tired of thinking that he had been waiting for our hero for too long. Meanwhile, a trinity of unknown people gathered outside the prison. The big guy approached the girl with a phone and asked when they would start, to which she replied that her husband had finally shown up. On her phone screen was Seo Gangyu. A big guy named Kanis reminded her that she had already said that her husband was Huang Sung-hwan. The second guy named Gado also reminded her that she used an electromagnetic attack to save Huang. Canis also added that this hero is the most useless creation for the development of humanity. The girl looked back at her friends with a smile and said that Seo Gangyu was a hero, but now he doesn't look like that at all. The men approached her and said that she had to choose one of them, to which she replied that she didn't even know who to choose, older or younger. After that, she decided that she would choose the one who would survive. Meanwhile, the warden came down to our hero and praised him for his good work. She mentioned that he had dealt with the first floor very quickly and suggested that they rest because from the first basement the prisoner's strength would increase exponentially, so it would be better for them to rest. Seo Gangyu looked back and said that he was coming down right now and asked her to open the door. The warden looked at him and said that if that was what he wanted, she would fulfill his request. She also added that before he went downstairs, he had to listen to one request of hers. She said she was still receiving signals from the living guards below, so she asks to make sure that they can get out of there alive and be able to see their families again. Seo Gangyu looked around again and asked how many people were alive on each floor, to which the boss replied that all the communication devices below the first floor were broken, so they couldn't get any information right now. But all the devices on the fifth floor were working as if they wanted everyone to see everything, and there is a real massacre taking place. Seo Gangyu adjusted his uniform and said that it was time for him to go. The boss warned him that the first underground floor was much more difficult and the difference would be simply colossal. As soon as the doors opened in front of our hero, he immediately froze. Monsters ran out of it and immediately attacked our hero. And those who had long-range abilities gathered together to attack him at the same time. They shot and asked, "Did Seo Gangyu really think that the first underground floor would not prepare knowing that they would come for them?" The boss looked at everything and could not believe that her officer had died. She shouted his name, and immediately in front of her appeared a prisoner who swung his hand and shouted that it was better for her to think about herself now and not about others. After that, the man grabbed her by the neck and said that he caught a big fish because she was a boss with 2 stars. He squeezed her with his palm and said that he always wanted to spread her elegant head. The guy laughed and said that everything turned out as well as possible for the prisoners. After this, the man looked back and told the other prisoners that he was the head of the prison and he would allow them to use it in order of their turn. However, when he looked back, he immediately froze in fear because all his partners were dead. After that, he heard something from above and looked up. Our hero's fist was the last thing he saw. Having destroyed everyone who had turned them in near the entrance, Seo Gangyu looked at the boss and said that starting from the second underground floor, he would continue alone because it was already too dangerous. The warden looked up at him and said she agreed. She also reminded that Tomoki, who was caught by Tome, is in the punishment cell on this floor. Seo Gangyu briefly replied that he would be careful. Meanwhile, the prisoners who were in the punishment cell were talking to each other about how they had just heard a very loud noise and that probably those who wanted to escape had already succeeded. However, their conversation was stopped by a woman who was sitting on one of the officers. She said that they were fools if they thought that those who were higher up could succeed. Tomoki twirled her finger at her temple and said that she warned them, but they never listened to her. This woman had 28 hero kills to her credit. The woman laughed and said that this is the reason why bad people become villains from the start. They just don't have brains. Tomoki is a former hero. Hearing these words, one of the prisoners approached her and asked if she really wanted them to kill her, after which the woman laughed and said that he simply made her laugh. Because they all got here by killing ordinary people, while she fought people who had special abilities. She smiled and said that she forgot that they got here because they fought with one of them and lost. After these words, the big guy changed his form and said to braid what he is now showing to the other prisoners. So this is how to kill people with abilities. As soon as he said those words, Tomoki immediately split him in two with a blow. She called him a cocky bastard and said that such a fate awaits anyone who wants to stand against her. Everyone else looked at this in surprise, and at that time she told that she caught villains as a hero, and that's how she learned to catch gifted people and then use these skills to kill heroes. Licking her fingers, she looked at the other prisoners and said that if they join her, then she will tell them how to hunt such people. So with a crazy smile, she said that she knows what ability our hero has. The prisoners immediately approached her and asked her how she knew what his ability was, to which she replied that she was an experienced hero and knew almost everything about them. One of the prisoners asked what this information would give them, since Seo Gang-yu was from Equality, a team where all the heroes were level 1. So a 3-level hero like Tomoki was clearly no match for him. Hearing these words, Tomoki laughed. After a short pause, she said that the hero of Laos had become the head of Equality and a real revolution had taken place in the hero industry. Firstly, the very definition of a hero was changed so that they could not kill villains. Secondly, the heroes periodically united teams and trained together. Lastly, the hierarchy of heroes leading from level 1 to level 5 has been removed. Tomoki took a short pause and continued to say that the reason she suddenly became a prisoner to tell about this was because Seo Gang-yu joined the Equality when the hierarchy disappeared. He joined Equality, although he did nothing outstanding, and there were many rumors that the team was rife with corruption and that he might have been Laos's secret lover. After these words, one of the prisoners said that perhaps she was right in some way because no one had ever seen Seo Gang-yu fight. The prisoner thought for a moment and said that in any case, considering how quickly he cleared the first floor, he should be at least a level 2 hero. Tomoki immediately shouted that there were only surveys. She looked at Hong Hu and Choi Mok Kang, who had killed 4,000 people in total, and said that if they are joined by Kurial and Midazonak, who together killed 6,000 people, then they have an excellent chance. She also added that naturally, Speech, who single-handedly killed 6,500 people, should participate. Tomoki thought for a moment and said that she is not saying that Seo Gang-yu is weak, he is definitely. However, she knows his weakness. After this, the woman said with a smile that she was sure she could handle him. After some arguing, everyone else who heard this conversation said they were ready to unite. Speech thought for a moment and said that he would also play on the team and asked what their plan was. Centuries ago, humanity developed supernatural abilities, and through research, scientists divided them into 3 main sectors. Those who can strengthen and transform their body, the physical sector. Those who are driven to create something out of nothing, the creative sector. And those who are not included in the 2 previous sectors, a special sector. Back to the present, Seo Gang-yu has descended deep enough to meet this team. Speech used telepathy and asked if Tomoki could see what he showed her. The woman laughed and said that this guy had an ability similar to hers. The reason Tomoki thought she had found Seo Gang-yu's weakness was because she had been watching him train as a future hero. Meanwhile, Seo Gang-yu had already come close enough to them and said that he was giving them a choice, to put on the control devices or die on the spot. However, while he was saying this, someone suddenly shot at him. Tomoki thought that while she was watching him train, he never dodged because he was too confident in his strength. Tomoki used the hard prison door as cover. Special and creative skills were used to attack, to destroy our hero. Speech watched all this and said that, as she said, he was simply taking all the damage. However, Tomoki hardly understood the reason why Seo Gang-yu didn't avoid the damage, and it lies in the fact that he simply did not consider it necessary to do this. So she decided to add another variable to ranged attacks. And in the confusion, they used devices to shackle our hero. A device that controls abilities, preventing anyone with superpowers from using their abilities. Speech remembered her giving the order to go through the security building and collect the control devices, but he doubted they would work because they were intended for the first floor. To which she replied that he need not worry because they would put several of them on him at once. And since they were intended for the first floor, 10 of them would be enough for the second-level heroes, since even for first-level heroes, about 15 were needed to seal their abilities. Million's plan was to attach them using his ability while the hero was being attacked from a distance. And they decided, just to be on the safe side, to put 30 devices on him at once. Once the dust settled, the prisoners saw that Seo Gang-yu was completely covered in these devices and began to rejoice, saying that the end had come for him. But soon their joy turned to surprise, because Tomoki made 3 mistakes in her plan. Seo Gangyu tensed her body and dropped some of the controllers. The first mistake she made was underestimating his strength, which significantly surpassed the first level. Using telepathy, Speech saw all this and told Tomoki that all the controllers were destroyed. Those prisoners that you lived with immediately began to run away and say that they urgently needed to move to Plan B. Speech gave the order to go to Plan B using telepathy. The surviving prisoners immediately took the officers who were nearby hostage. Seo Gangyu slowly raised his finger up and immediately attacked the prisoners exclusively with his ability. Tomoki's second mistake was that Seo Gangyu didn't only have the physical sector. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to save the officers at the same time as killing the prisoners. After that, Seo Gangyu rushed across the floor at full speed and destroyed everyone who remained alive. Tomoki's third mistake was that Seo Gangyu was someone that such strategies wouldn't work on. After this, Seo Gangyu noticed that he was being watched by telepathy and severed this connection with the power of thought. Speech couldn't believe they had met someone so strong. He started yelling at Tomoki, who was nervously biting her nails and saying that this simply couldn't be happening and that it didn't fit in her head. Meanwhile, Speech continued to yell at her. Suddenly, her nerves couldn't take it anymore and she pierced his body, telling him to shut up. Finally, she shouted that if he thought they were equal because they had been locked in the same place all this time, then he was wrong. Looking at Speech's corpse, she thought about it and decided that such a bunch of devices would definitely be enough to seal the abilities of a first-level hero. She couldn't believe he was so strong, because he had never fought in the front lines. Finally, she looked up in despair and snapped that it didn't make any sense at all. Then the officer began to scream and beg for help. She swung her hand to finish him off, but when she looked at it, she saw that she no longer had a hand. Looking back, she saw that Seo Gangyu was already standing next to her. Seo Gangyu looked into her eyes and asked if she had anything to say in the end. Laughing, Tomoki sent him away. Looking into her eyes, Seo Gangyu asked, "Is that all she wanted to say?" After thinking for a moment, the woman asked if it was true that Seo Gangyu was the only surviving member of the equality. Seo Gangyu briefly replied that this was true. After these words, Tomoki smiled and said that it turned out that Tome was also dead. Seo Gangyu didn't answer, and Tomoki said with a smile that she once advised her to give up heroism. After a short pause, she also said that her younger sister was a real fool. Seo Gangyu looked at her silently, and finally the woman asked if the other heroes knew about how Seo Gangyu killed people, even though he was a member of equality. Seo Gangyu didn't answer, and Tomoki said with a smile on her face that Lausa had worked hard to change the hero industry. However, thanks to our hero, everything returned to normal. And even after these words, Seo Gangyu did not utter a word. Tomoki wanted to say something else, but Seo Gangyu said that her last word was too drawn out. When Tomoki was still young, she realized that something was wrong with the hero industry. She realized this exactly at the moment when she became the heroine known as Tomoki. In those days, heroes could even sacrifice people in order to destroy a villain. At that time, the law stated that a hero's duty must be carried out absolutely always, even if civilians were subsequently killed. The reason Tomoki became a hero was simple. She had a younger sister, and unlike her younger sister, she did not have any special abilities, so she was highly dependent on her gifted older sister. However, Tomoki was a strange hero. Having such a high position, she felt superior and proud. Instead of pride in saving and sympathy for people every time she saved them, she felt different things. One day when she was doing her heroic duty, she killed a villain for the first time while on a mission. During her first kill, she felt such an incredible sense of superiority for the first time in her life. She couldn't believe that someone's death could bring her into such ecstasy. After that, she continued to kill villains, civilians, heroes. She killed everyone indiscriminately. Among all this, what she enjoyed most was killing her comrades who were weaker. She loved watching the look on their faces when they realized she had betrayed them. The loss of these people drove her crazy, but soon her secret was revealed. Tomei began to suspect her sister when Tomoki began to return home late at night, saturated with the smell of blood. So the younger sister decided to simply keep an eye on the older one. So she witnessed her property sister killing someone. When Tomoki heard about this, she asked her little sister if she wanted to join her and help. The younger sister couldn't move from her place, and then the older one waved her hand, saying that in that case she would do everything herself. But it was at this moment that Tom's abilities awakened. On this day, she completed her first heroic mission. After that, the younger one pursued her older sister, the former heroine and current villain, and in the end, she managed to defeat her and arrest her. All these memories quickly flashed through her head, and she asked the officer if her sister's death was painless. Seo Gong-yu immediately remembered that she died during the battle with Huang. On the brink of death, Tome called for help from her older sister. So the hero told about all this, and the woman said that it was going out and there was no point in asking about it. After that, she transformed and said that with these words, he only ruined her mood. After that, she pounced on our hero at full speed. And when it seemed to her that she was able to pierce him, he immediately kicked her and threw her into the wall. He raised a cloud of dust, but when it cleared, he saw that she was rushing at him again. And then he hit her with all his might right in the stomach. The woman fell to her knees, no longer able to maintain her heroic form. Seo Gong-yu looked down at her and said that even though her death would be legal, he still didn't like killing his comrade. Hearing these words from the woman, she smiled and asked why he didn't almost her in that case. Seo Gang-yu did not answer, and the woman continued to talk about how Seo Gang-yu once swore an oath to Laos not to kill anyone, to which Seo Gang-yu replied that he was no longer a hero. After these words, the woman grabbed him by the leg and began to beg him to spare her, because she did not want to die at all. Seo Gang-yu continued to look into her eyes and said that her expression now should seem familiar to her. After that, he swung his hand and concentrated his power into it. The sound of the blow echoed throughout the prison. This sound even made someone's heart flutter. Someone was scared and didn't understand what was happening above. And for some, this sound only increased their expectations. At this point, Huang said that he could not continue to wait any longer and was going upstairs right now. However, immediately after that, someone used their strength to throw him into the wall. Huang was surprised that he missed such a blow and said that it was a real surprise. After that, a man appeared in front of him. He looked about 60 years old. His name was Kingston, the old man said with a smile that he could play. Huang laughed and said that this was some kind of creepy old man. Hearing these words, the grandfather laughed and said that he was still handsome. He was the death row prisoner, 001 from the 5th underground floor. The officers who were monitoring the surveillance cameras immediately notified their superior that Kingston and Huang were meeting right now on the 5th underground floor. The woman looked at the surveillance cameras and said that this was simply great news because it meant that one of them was definitely going to die. So she added that she personally is rooting for Kingston because he is not as dangerous as Huang. However, she sharpened herself because she saw that next to them was a blonde. Meanwhile, Huang asked if Grandpa really wanted to fight, to which he replied that of course he did. Huang scratched his head and said that he didn't want to fight. The look immediately changed and he said that they should definitely have some fun. Kingston is the prison's first inmate and its oldest, serving a long sentence. Unlike the prisoners on the 4th and 5th lower floors who killed tens of millions of people, he killed only 3. The first to die was the most passionate and powerful villain of his time, named Caracas. The second and third to die were the best heroes of that time, Clark and Hilo. Kingston appeared out of nowhere and killed 3 of the most powerful people at the time. After that, he said that now that he had defeated everyone who was called invincible, he himself had become invincible. After this, he voluntarily surrendered to the government. He had no equal. He voluntarily surrendered, killing only a few people. At that time, the government and the Association of Heroes were on bad terms. And because of his small number of victims, as well as internal disagreements, he has managed to avoid execution for 30 years. Now he stood in front of the guy with white hair and said that he was not going to kill him. They would just play a little because he did not want to feel the sediment in his soul of lives ruined at the root. Huang thought for a moment and said that in that case they could fight. Afterwards, Huang raised his left hand up, and along with this, all the officers who were around rose up. And a moment later, they all exploded. Huang directed his power straight at this grandfather. However, the grandfather easily repelled all these attacks. A light blood rain has started on the lower floor. Grandfather looked at his opponent and said that he thought that Huang had telekinesis. But considering how he had just fought, it turned out that grandfather was wrong. Huang, meanwhile, said that everything turned out as he thought, and playing with grandfather is boring. Because what's fun in killing someone who will die soon anyway? The grandfather stretched his leg and said that the boy was too self-confident, after which he also added that he had already seen a lot of people like him and they all sit like a frog in a well and only think about their superiority. After that, the grandfather took a normal step and the floor beneath him collapsed. As the debris rose into the air, he said that they are all filled with pride and this is their path to the grave. The chief and the officers who were taller than everyone else immediately fell to the floor and said that at this rate the building would not last long. The boss immediately asked him to shut up and said that even the power of a first or second level hero would not be enough to destroy this prison. So she orders everyone to calm down because there are 20 layers of specialized walls here and no one can destroy it. Meanwhile, the grandfather began to slowly approach his church, saying that he would now teach the boy good manners. Seeing this, Huang's heart trembled a little, and the next second he saw that his grandfather had already jumped on him and was preparing to attack. The boss started to get up and ask who won, but the officer, with horror on his face, said that that was not the issue. Huang was able to bow from the blow, however. When he looked back, he saw something impressive. Meanwhile, the officers reported that all the walls had been broken through with one blow. The woman looked at this with horror and said that they were now in complete trouble. The guy with white hair started to come up there behind Fifth and say something to the man, like a real drill. He looked down into the hole and said that maybe they should go and look for him. However, behind them, a group of unknown people appeared and said that they did not need this old man. There was also a girl there who was looking for a husband, and she said that she thought it would be much more interesting to chat with her than with an old man. Huang looked at her in surprise and asked who she was. The woman replied that if he talked to her, he would be able to find out everything himself. After that, she looked up and said that first, when braiding, she would need to get rid of the audience. The boss watched as this woman turned off the camera with the power of her mind. Seeing this, she became angry and slammed her hands on the table. Meanwhile, Seo Gang-yu said that the mission on the first underground floor is completed, so he asks to open the door to the second floor. However, no one answered him, and he decided that the connection was probably lost because he had gone down too low. After which, with the help of his power, he opened these doors himself. Entering inside, he thought that, unlike the first underground floors, going down to the second underground floor, he does not feel anything, and it is very clean here, and also there are no corpses or living people visible. After that, he looked back and saw that there was a surviving officer ahead who was running away from several monsters. The woman also noticed him and thought that it was Niso Gang-yu standing in front of her, but his older brother. She shouted for him to run away as quickly as possible, but Seo Gang-yu instead destroyed all the other beasts with one blow. After that, he looked at this woman and asked if she was okay. The girl rushed to hug him with tears in her eyes because she still thought that he was her older brother and not Seo Gang-yu. She asked why he was here and not on the top floor and what was that all about. Seo Gang-yu didn't have time to answer and she continued talking. So she was surprised that he actually turned out to be gifted, but she didn't understand why he hid it. Seo Gang-yu moved her away from him a little and put his hand on her shoulder, saying that he was Gang Ho's younger brother named Seo Gang-yu. The girl was surprised but looked at him because she couldn't believe that such a high-quality hero ended up in this prison. She looked at him again and asked why he was wearing a prison guard uniform and what he was doing here anyway. Seo Gang-yu said that he works here now, and she laughed and said that since they were meeting for the first time, she needed to introduce herself first. Extending her hand, she said that she was his daughter-in-law, and she also noticed that he looked very much like his older brother. Meanwhile, in the punishment cell on the second underground floor, someone had already noticed that an outsider had entered this territory. The man asked how many sins he had already committed, and the girl with the crosses answered that this unknown person had killed her dog. The guy with blue hair said that now everything was clear to him, and his road was straight to hell. Meanwhile, prison warden Hong Ji-ah said with a smile on her face that she had only seen the inspector's brother in photos before, but in reality he looked even better. She introduced him by her name and said that she worked here with him. Seo Gang-yu briefly replied that he knew that his brother had a girlfriend, but he didn't know the details. The woman pointed to her stomach, and with a smile she said that inside her was the one because of whom Seo Gang-yu would become an uncle. Seo Gang-yu looked at her in surprise, and she said that she knew that now you are unnoticed because the water is only less than a month old, and she herself only recently found out about it. And because of the incident with Huang, she had to hold off on telling his brother the news for now. Seo Gang-yu was silent for a few seconds and asked if she was really serious now, to which the girl replied that she was. After that, she asked if something had happened, to which Seo Gang-yu replied that everything was fine. After thinking for a bit, the girl asked what he was doing here and why he was in their uniform. Seo Gang-yu immediately replied that he was appointed as a prison guard for the purpose of executing the prisoners in the prison. The girl asked him about the order to the boss over the summer, to which Seo Gang-yu replied that he understood that she didn't know anything, so he would briefly explain the situation to her. After a few minutes, he had her fully up to date. The girl asked who could have carried out this electromagnetic attack, to which Seo Gang-yu replied that the investigation was still ongoing. After that, the girl with tears in her eyes asked what happened to her brother, because now he should be on the last underground floor for the execution. Seo Gang-yu did not answer her question and said that a signal for help had been received from this floor. The girl breathed a sigh of relief. Seo Gang Yu looked around and said that it was very dangerous here, so she should get up and he could take her out. To which the girl categorically refused and said that he needed her because without her, he would not be able to go down lower. Seo Gang Yu asked why this was so, to which she replied that she had the ability to read the minds of those she looked at. Seo Gang Yu was surprised, but he looked at her and she understood everything, and immediately calmed him down with words that he shouldn't worry because she didn't read his thoughts and she doesn't use her ability without a good reason. She explained that she uses her ability to conduct psychotherapy with prisoners, as well as to understand whether they have committed a crime. Seo Gang Yu looked at her and asked how this could help him, to which she replied that at the moment it was in the second-floor crankcase. Misha and Masha are located, they control this place, they are brother and sister with the power of a special class, summoning. And their ability gives them the ability to transform the puppets around them by piercing their hearts. Therefore, now all prisoners on this floor are under their control. Seo Gang Yu immediately said that he had an idea of their ability because they were Mago's disciples. After that, Seo Gang Yu raised his left hand up and said that if you are the first to know everything, then it is time for her to get up. To which she said that some of their combat puppets are prison guards. She also said that the puppets are indistinguishable from each other, and Seo Gang Yu will not be able to determine who is the caretaker and who is the criminal. But she can do this because she uses her abilities to read their memories. Seo Gang Yu said that if they turned into puppets, then it means that they are better off dead, so there is no point in checking anyone, to which she replied that they are still alive. And when Misha and Masha activate their abilities, they will become themselves again. Seo Gang Yu immediately said that these guys would never do this, to which the guard replied that she could convince them. Seo Gang Yu pointed to her stomach and said that it was too dangerous for her condition, to which she replied that before becoming a mother, she was and is a prison guard, and therefore she must fulfill her official duty. Seo Gang Yu immediately remembered his brother. After that, he agreed with her and lifted her into the air using his ability. She looked around in surprise and asked what it was, to which he replied that it was his ability and it would protect her from danger. After that, they continued to walk forward, and after a few seconds, around the corner they saw a group of monsters in front of them. The girl immediately said that this was Misha's doing. She asked our hero not to forget that they had many guards in captivity. Seo Gang Yu asked which one of them was the warden, and the girl used her ability and said that the two behind were the warden. After that, Seo Gang Yu used his ability to block her view. After that, he rushed to attack and killed everyone who was not a warden. Misha and Masha, using their abilities, observed everything that was happening. Masha hugged her brother and said that she was very scared because this man was so strong. Misha immediately hugged his sister and said that she shouldn't worry because this guy wouldn't kill them that easily. They continued to advance further, and Seo Gang Yu killed everyone they met except those who were overseers and who could still be saved. And suddenly they finally met Misha and Masha. Seo Gang Yu looked at them and said that they made his job easier by coming here on their own. Seo Gang Yu ordered them to dispel their spell, and in that case he will allow them to die without suffering. Misha looked at him and asked, "Is it really true that the case in which he doesn't kill them is not considered at all?" So Gang Yu said that on the previous floors, he gave the opportunity to delay death by putting on controllers. However, the creatures are the same ones who killed below. You don't have so many people. Donate only to them. A merciless death. Misha looked at our hero and said that he heard that So Gang Yu was their comrade in arms and teacher. Masha added that he was the same for the woman who caught him. However, they feel that his aura is completely different. Misha briefly said that if he let them go, they would stop using their power, to which Seo Gang Yu immediately replied that this was rejected. Misha immediately shouted that they had not yet committed crimes punishable by death, to which Seo Gang Yu immediately responded that he was not going to negotiate with people like them. After that, Seo Gang Yu summoned a weapon, but Misha stepped forward and said that they really didn't want to fight, and if Seo Gang Yu listened to the story, they could come to an agreement. However, Seo Gang Yu immediately refused. Immediately after that, he bound them with his power. Seo Gang Yu looked up and said that he had heard from other villains how to torture properly, and he never thought that there would be a moment when those words would come in handy for him. Misha looked down and said that it was useless to talk to our hero because he was not a man but a beast or even a monster. After that, Seo Gang Yu used his powers and instantly killed all the puppets who were prisoners, saying that he was tired of hearing from every killer that he was a monster. He will arrange a bloodbath. He said that these words spoil his mood, and then he finished off Misha and Masha. However, these were only people and the real criminals were sitting in the punishment cell. Seo Gan Yu went on to advance further and destroyed the monsters that Masha summoned along the way, one by one, without pity. He left no one in his path. Masha, who was watching all this, was shaking with fear. She looked at her brother and asked how much longer he could hold out, to which he replied that he estimated another 10 minutes. The girl said that time was short, so this time she was going to use all her strength. Suddenly, a hole appeared in the ceiling. Misha and Masha looked at the one standing in front of them, and it was So Gang Yu, who said that he thought that there was no point in wasting his time on those they were calling, and it would be better if he caught them. He also said that if they dispel their own witchcraft, he will let them die painlessly. Misha instantly raised his hands up and began to cast a spell. He called Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and also the angel Uriel. However, as soon as he summoned them, Seo Gang Yu destroyed them. Seeing this, Misha raised the officers in front of him and said that if So Gang Yu came closer, all the guards would be dead. But as soon as Misha looked back, he saw that So Gang Yu had already grabbed his sister. Seo Gang Yu began to slowly approach and say that, if my brother let me go, all the guards, then his sister would die a painful death. Misha immediately fell to his knees and said that he would fulfill all the conditions and stop resisting. However, he asks in return to talk to a supervisor named Hong Ji-ah. Seo Gang Yu ignored these words and told Misha to turn off his ability. After this, he did so and was reunited with his sister. Seo Gang Yu remained in front of the guards and prisoners who did not understand how they ended up there. With one blow, Seo Gang Yu killed absolutely all the prisoners. After this, he looked at the guards and ordered them to return upstairs. They immediately obediently came out from the second floor, and Misha immediately said that he had fulfilled his promise. Seo Gang Yu turned around and said that they should change places first because a pregnant girl shouldn't see something like that. After that, they got up and she asked what happened, left the hero, and answered that everything was over and all the guards were saved. After that, he pointed to Misha and Masha and stated that they expressed a desire to talk to her before they died. The girl immediately stated that these children could simply put on controllers, to which Seo Gang Yu replied that he did not want her to force him to repeat. Starting from the second underground floor, he personally intends to execute the monsters that killed hundreds of thousands of people. After this, Misha looked at the warden and asked, have they really done something for which they should die? In a voice trembling with fear, he said that they had not done anything that was punishable by death. However, the warden could not say anything. Seo Gang Yu asked if they had anything to add. However, they just looked at him silently. Seo Gang Yu slowly walked up to them and said that it was time for the execution. Masha, with tears in her eyes, began to beg for mercy. Misha, meanwhile, pressed her to himself with all his strength. And finally, Seo Gang Yu ran up and hit them with all his might. However, immediately after this, he stopped in surprise. After all, I saw in front of me a projection of Mago who protected his students. The children could not believe that they saw a dead teacher in front of them. Seo Gang Yu looked at all this and couldn't understand what was going on, because it was impossible for the criminals on the second floor to have such a high level of defensive abilities. This means that his former comrade himself used his ability to protect them even after death. Look at all this. So Gang Yu gathered his strength into a fist and said that even this would not help them anyway. After that, he struck to break through the protective field. But Mago's projection immediately strengthened. He looked up and wondered what kind of magical seal he had placed on them. However, Seo Gang Yu had no intention of giving up. So Gang Yu broke Mago's magic seals one by one. And all this time he was haunted by a strange feeling. In his head were memories of Mago playing with the children from his orphanage. However, Seo Gang Yu was always on the sidelines. When Mago approached him, he asked if Seo Gang Yu didn't like children, to which Seo Gang Yu replied that he simply didn't know how to communicate with them. Mago leaned over and said that Seo Gang Yu could act like his parents did when he was little and acting up, to which Seo Gang Yu replied that shortly after his birth, his parents died, so he only had an older brother. Mago immediately apologized and said that he shouldn't have said anything about it. After that, he smiled and said that Seo Gang Yu could make up for the absence of her parents and act up in front of him. Seo Gang Yu looked at the man in surprise and Mago laughed and said that it was just a joke. However, despite all this, he said that if our hero had hard times, he would always turn to Mago. However, the memories immediately changed. Seo Gang Yu remembered Huang's crazy face and with what cruelty he killed his comrades. Mad with fear and pain, Seo Gang Yu looked at this monster with fury. However, Mago, on the threshold of his death, smiled and said that everything was fine. Seo Gang Yu destroyed all the magic seals while remembering all of this. And when the last magic seal remained, So Gang Yu stopped. After that, he brought the warden down to the ground. He asked her if she could read memories of the ability, and she immediately replied that she could do so. After that, So Gang Yu pointed to the magic seal and said that she should read the memories of this magic because he needed to find out why that damn old man put a magic seal on them. The girl used her power and showed what kind of memories were locked in this magic. Seo Gang Yu sat down on the floor to rest and told you that it looked strange. As the warden suddenly showed him all the memories, Seo Gang Yu immediately found himself at an auction of people with abilities. This place was a real embodiment for those who had the abilities. Misha and Masha found themselves at one of these auctions at the age of 6. It was a trade in people with abilities for VIPs collecting people with rare gifts. The underworld created an auction house hidden under the ruined city. Misha and Masha were sold there by their father. The best-selling people have always been people with special class abilities, as well as physical class abilities that could transform their bodies. Among these abilities, the lowest cost was for the summoning class. So the mission and the mass of those who had such abilities for a long time, no one bought. And when they had already given up their end, suddenly the door of the cage opened in front of them, and a man appeared who announced that someone had bought them. The woman who bought them smiled and said, "Are these really the same children who can summon angels and demons?" The man at the auction asked why the woman was buying them. The woman replied that she was just curious, and he explained to her that he wanted to make sure that she would later demand the money back from me for these children. Smiling evilly, the woman said that she was just curious about what would happen if you crossed an angel and demons. The children looked at her in surprise, and she said with a smile that they were still very young and therefore had no idea what was coming for them, but they would soon find out. While she was talking about this with a smile, suddenly the ceiling began to melt. A few seconds later, an explosion occurred that destroyed the building completely. However, someone put a shield on everyone who was inside. It was Mago with his assistant. The assistant's name was Rifus. She was from the summoning class, and she tried to find out from her teacher how to repeat this incredible technique, to which he replied that if she tried, she would succeed. In the middle of their argument, Masha and Misha suddenly appeared, apologizing for interrupting them and asking if they could take them with them. Misha looked at Mago with fear and said that they also have summoning abilities. Rifus immediately said with a smile that this man promised her that he would take only her as a student, after which Mago laughed and said that he never made such a promise. Having descended to the ground, he asked them with a smile to show what they could do. The children immediately used their abilities, and Mago saw an angel and a demon in front of him. Rifus said that this was somehow too unusual for small children, since usually at their age they call for puppies or toys. Mago thought for a few seconds, and then he approached the children, spreading his arms in his hands. He said that now they would follow him, and he would show them the world of magic. And so, for the last 3 years, he taught these children how to master the power of summoning. He explained that Misha can summon an angel because it is most likely the image of their mother who protected them in childhood. Masha, in turn, summons a demon, and most likely, this is the image of the father who was violent towards them. Mago smiled and told Zakata that there was nothing wrong with that, because if they could expand their horizons, they would be able to summon a great many different things. Masha said with a smile that they were more interested in hell and heaven. Mago was surprised and said that this was a rather unusual choice for children. A few seconds later, Misha explained that just before her death, his mother told them that good people go to heaven and evil people go to hell. And all this time she supported them with words. Therefore, now, so that in the future good people go to heaven and bad people go to hell, they want to direct this world along the right path. Mago smiled and stroked these children on the head and laughed and said that he was sure that everything would work out for them because they were the kindest children he had ever seen. But one day Rufus came with bad news. She was worried and said that the Hero Association had asked for help. Mago said it was strange because they had rejected his offer and now they had decided to show up. Rufus interrupted her mentor and announced that Esved had appeared in Finland. The man immediately said that equality should have been sent there, to which she replied that this had not yet been done. Mago called Misha and Masha and said that he needed to leave for a while. After saying goodbye, he said that the enemy was very strong and it could take several years. Misha looked at her mentor and said that they could go together, to which he replied that it was too dangerous to take them with him. Masha, meanwhile, with tears in her eyes, held on to her mentor and said that she didn't want them to be abandoned again. Mago put a seal on them and told her that this was a gift, that I am here for this, a sign of his power will remain. Therefore, the teachers at the orphanage will treat them well, and they will definitely meet again. After that, he said goodbye and went on a mission, saying that they would definitely meet in the future. But after parting, Misha and Masha did not go to the shelter, Perhaps it was fear of an unpredictable future, and they hid in the wilderness and began to improve their skills. They thought about the fact that they needed to invite a lot of effort in order to grow up good and kind before the mentor returned. They wondered what is good and what is evil, and after 2 years, having learned the difference between good and evil on their own, they returned to their native land. And they began to create their own hell and heaven just as they imagined them. Friends, I spend a lot of time and effort retelling a single manhwa. It takes several days, and my videos don't always pay off. If you like what I do and want to support me or see more of this manhwa, please use the super thank you feature. It really helps. And a huge thank you to everyone who watches the video to the end. I really appreciate it. In just 1 month, Misha and Masha turned the entire village into a kind of utopia. They summoned their creatures to watch over the people in the village. This went on for a month, and then they decided who would go to hell and who would go to heaven. The conditions by which they distributed people were based on what their mothers forbade them to do as children. These were very simple childhood rules. They were so simple and yet so terrifying even for those who met the conditions. They killed even those who were good people because they believed that they would send them to heaven. It was the utopia of these two that clearly had its flaws. And this became the agenda for the Association of Heroes. Katu, the third-level heroes, caused their desire to go and deal with these children. She received consent from the head of the association and headed to the village. Upon arrival, she was deeply impressed by their abilities. As soon as she entered, Masha immediately noticed that someone had entered their territory. Ktu used her abilities and destroyed all the people who were puppets of these children. She was also a student of Mago, whom he abandoned because she neglected defensive techniques in favor of attackers, and also because of her stormy temper. She walked around the village and killed everyone she saw. Finally, Misha and Masha came out to meet her so that she would not destroy absolutely everyone in this village. They tried to attack her, but she was stronger than the two of them put together. After the massacre in the village, Ktu broke through in her abilities and was able to summon something incredible. She pointed a colossal folding knife at them and said that now they would say goodbye to their lives. But a moment later, her body was consumed. The reason for this was Masha. In this woman, Masha saw a terrifying demon, and because of fear, her abilities also increased. With bloody tears on her cheeks, Masha looked at her brother and said in a devastated voice that she had just killed a man. The brother immediately hugged his sister and calmed her down, saying that she had killed a monster and not a person. A year later, they created their own utopia in a small town. The Hero Association program listed them as criminals, and she gave the order to lock them up on the second floor of the prison. At the same time, their teacher returned from Finland and could not believe his eyes. The head of the association forbade Mago from participating in this task. What caused the internal conflict? Laosa, who saw all this, slowly stood up, and she stated that she would cope with this mission. Laosa walked forward and said that Mago didn't have to worry. The next day, she immediately went to a small town that Masha and Misha had captured, and the children immediately spotted her. As Laosa moved through the city, she discovered that the heroes who had been sent to this location earlier were still alive and were simply under someone else's control. After some time, they met face to face. Laosa announced that she was a hero and that she had come here to take the children with her. Hearing these words, they immediately perceived her as an enemy and ordered her to leave immediately, otherwise she would go to hell. The woman looked at them with kind eyes and said that she would leave only if she took them with her. At that very moment, she completely suppressed their magic. Laosa then came down in front of the children and said that she understood that they were good people because she did not sense any murderous intent in their attacks. Looking at them, she said that she was very sorry because if a righteous hero had come to them first, everything would have turned out differently. Misha and Masha looked at her with horror while she was talking about how you understand that this is all very strange because they considered their actions to be correct, but people wanted to stop them. Finally, she said that they don't have to worry because she won't hurt them. However, she announced that they were doing the wrong thing, and their mentor was also sad. As soon as they heard about the mentor, the fear gradually began to go away. Laosa slowly bowed before them and extended her hand, saying that they could return together and visit the mentor. Misha and Masha felt an inexplicable warmth from Laosa. After some time, they were able to see their teacher. They also said that they met a girl who called herself his student, and they told everything they knew about Katu. Mago looked at the children in surprise and said that, apart from Rifus and them, he had never had any students. He had only met this woman once in the association and had given her advice. After that, they spent the day together and the mentor shared with the students stories that he could not tell before. Masha and Misha talked about the efforts they made to grow up to be good children, and why others could not understand these efforts still remained a mystery to them. Towards evening, Mago looked at Laos and asked if she could leave these children with him. After thinking for a moment, she said that they had taken thousands of hostages and killed one hero, so it would be difficult to avoid the death penalty. Mago stated that these were simply children who had lost their way and that he could help them understand their mistakes. Laosa said that she understands him, and she also does not agree with the law that allows feeding minors. But it cannot be opposed because the re-education of criminals is not included in the law. Looking up, the woman said that she also believed that there were too many problems in this world. She then looked at Mago and invited him to join her. The man asked angrily, "What does this have to do with children?" To which Lausa said with complete confidence that she would change this world. After some small talk, Mago said that he would join them on the condition that she would allow him to use his power to protect these children until they grew up. The woman agreed, and he, with the help of his power, protected them. After finishing watching the memories, Xiao Gang Yu was left on the cold floor. He remembered how he once met Lao Su, who said the same things. Standing up, so Gang Yu looked at these children. Misha saw him and said that they simply judged people by their own rules, because the law is also just a rule created by the people of this world. The warden wanted to say that they were also here to re-educate these two, and after they fully realized their guilt, they could change. But Seo Gong Yu blocked her view with his power. After that, he began to slowly approach the children. However, instead of finishing them off, he angrily hit the floor. At this moment, Seo Gong Yu was deep in thought. However, if you looked at his face, you would think that he had simply gone crazy. Deep inside his heart, he already knew that he didn't want to kill these children. Suddenly, they began to slowly crumble. Seo Gang Yu couldn't believe his eyes, and after a few more moments, a trinity of unknown people who sabotaged the prison appeared in front of him. Right before his eyes, the children he wanted to save had just died. The woman who appeared in front of him asked what he was so worried about. Seo Gong Yu still couldn't find the words to say anything while she was saying that he looked much cooler in person. With a smile, she continued to say that they should get married. However, Seo Gong Yu didn't even listen to her and immediately pounced. But this woman was defended by a big guy who said that when she speaks, he should listen. The girl with strange abilities told her servant that Seo Gang Yu would soon become his new master, so it would be impolite to interrupt. After that, the girl tried to tell her name with a smile. However, So Gang Yu broke through the big guy's defense and tried to hit her. I managed to put up protection and said that it was very impolite. After that, looking into his eyes, she said that they would meet quite often. Therefore, he needed to tell a little about himself. Seo Gang Yu was still silently looking at her, and she decided to take the initiative and say that her name is Shinka, and her special ability is space manipulation. After thinking for a bit, she added that she will become the Eve of the new humanity. Seo Gang Yu straightened up and rolled his eyes, saying that he had had enough of the seas of crazy women. Shinka smiled and said that Seo Gang Yu must understand that humanity is now in a very dangerous situation. Her look changed and became serious, and she said that now people are degrading, but if this continues, they will die out. She went on to say that humanity is actually dying not because of heroes or villains, but because they live under the oppression of mediocrity due to degenerate genes. That's why she believes that only those with excellent genes should press. But in their society, degenerates are constantly breeding. For example, the heroes of this second generation of equality heroes centered around Laos. Shinka said that she does not understand why such excellent genes went to meet their end and challenge the law of nature, because naturally those who were sown by evolution die out. Seo Gang Yu covered his face as he listened to all this nonsense. And the girl meanwhile said that she noticed that he is no longer a hero and kills everyone whose genes are weaker than his, so she fell in love with this side of him. After thinking for a bit, she said that the people who are imprisoned in this prison, and for the sake of human progress, killed inferior genes, and they are imprisoned here unfairly. After all, they are a collection of higher genes and the basis of a new humanity. According to her plan, they must destroy all heroes who hinder evolution and remove weak genes, to create a new world where only strong people will gather. She also said with a smile that Seo Gang Yu doesn't have to worry, because the strong heroes who change their minds and join them will be accepted by the new humanity. After all, they are not that strict. Seo Gang Yu slowly raised his gaze upward and said that at first he didn't want to kill Shinku, but now he would have to do it. Hearing these words, the girl immediately blushed. However, her assistant said that she probably misunderstood his words. After that, Shinka pointed her finger at him and said that he was the new Adam, and she is the new Eva, and their children will lead the new humanity. Afterwards, Shinka said with a smile that at first she thought that Wang would be the new Adam, so she saved him with her attack. However, the prison proved too strong and withstood this attack. So after receiving the blueprints of the building, she used a specially made aid to create an explosion and talk to Huang. However, he told her that he was still a minor, and his secondary sexual characteristics were not fully developed, and everyone knows that abilities are fully revealed only after the full development of secondary sexual characteristics. So she had to wait a little. So she found a clever way. And until Huan grows up, Seo Gangyu will be her partner, and then he will be too. And all this is for the sake of humanity, because she found a way to save the best genes from both of them. After that, she smiled and said that this would also help resolve their conflict, because in that case they would become a family and would be able to make peace. After listening to this whole story, Seo Gangyu looked at her menacingly and asked if it was really she who had arranged the attack on Ai. The girl immediately smiled and said that she knew that during that attack our hero's brother was killed. But there was nothing to worry about because together they could create a new family if she wanted a lot of children. Seo Gangyu began to approach them and say that he was taking back his words. And instead of killing her, he simply tore her apart. At the same time, he began to destroy her barrier. Looking at all this, the girl smiled and said that quarrels in a couple are not so bad because they ultimately bring people closer together. A moment later, when she realized that it was too dangerous, she teleported our hero. Seo Gangyu immediately found himself in the sky right above the prison. Finally, she created a projection and waved her hand at him, saying that he should first cool his head before talking. After these words, Seo Gangyu became even more furious, and directing all his strength and speed, he immediately appeared right in front of her. He swung his leg and tried to finish her off with one blow. However, she immediately disappeared, and from the portal she said that he needed to try to catch her again. Using his senses, he realized that she had moved to the first floor, and at full speed he reached her in the blink of an eye. However, she moved again, and Seo Gangyu again headed towards her to finish her off. But he was unable to do so because she moved every time. After a few seconds, she couldn't keep up and Seo Gangyu almost caught her. However, a second later, he realized that he was immediately pinned down by a second girl. Seo Gangyu turned around in a flash and grabbed her head. However, she immediately disappeared. Seo Gangyu calmly looked at the portal where the Trinity stood. Shinka, with tears in her eyes, said that they were doing wrong and they should not kill each other. After that, she used her ultimate ability and summoned the rest of the prisoners in this prison. Shedding her tears, she said that Seo Gangyu should meet those who are now in charge of humanity. On the third floor, a man named Edward said that Mago is now honey. Ho smiled and asked who would tame her now. The Hindu looked down sadly and said that he doubted that he had returned now. Another young guy said that they were worrying in vain because he was not an excellent student in this world. The girl with the tail said nothing because her whole body was shaking with fear. Pip took a drag on his pipe and said that the hero in prison uniform inspired him. Maurice asked him how he dared to smoke here and poison the air. Hyun, passing through the portal, asked what kind of scarecrows were gathered here, worse than monsters. Tatsujin, the prisoner of the fourth floor, said that unfortunately her scabbard is empty. After that, Stefan came out and asked, does her strength really depend only on weapons? Also emerging from the portal was a man from whom there was nothing human left. And finally, the last ones to come out before our hero were Huang and the strange girl. Her name was Ahura. She was of a special class. As soon as Seo Gangyu saw Huang, he immediately pounced on him and transformed his body. Huang used his strength to block the blow. A terrible, all-consuming sound echoed throughout the prison. Those who observed this said that it was simply a wild way of fighting. The officers said that it was probably time for them to get out of prison. Meanwhile, the head of the prison did not understand how everything could have happened this way, because she had not expected this at all. All the criminals on the third and fourth floors were caught by the heroes of equality. However, now she sees Seo Gangyu fighting for the first time. The stranger said that now he understands why Laos always stopped him. After all, if you visualize death, it would look exactly like this. Everyone who observed this felt amazement. Someone felt real envy for the first time in their life, and someone, with tears in their eyes, was sad, not understanding why he made such a choice. And among them all, only one felt true joy. With a smile on his face, the white-haired boy said that Seo Gangyu hadn't shown such a thing in battle. After that, he scratched his head, calling this power amazing. However, Seo Gangyu immediately approached him and dealt a powerful blow. The white-haired boy was able to defend himself and asked, is Seo Gangyu hiding something else? Afterwards, Huang amazed him with his strange power, and then he threw our hero away from himself. However, Seo Gangyu immediately got rid of his bubbles and rushed forward to attack. He tried to break through the white-haired guy's defense, but Huang said with a smile that he had prepared the compression in advance. And Xiao Gangyu immediately shrank and exploded. Those who watched this were surprised at how dangerous this kid was, because he was so strong even without physical abilities, and on top of that, he was still a minor. So when he grows up, he will become a real monster in the flesh. Meanwhile, the white-haired guy realized that the hero was not dead and was just hiding. As soon as he realized this, Xiao Gangyu dealt him a crushing blow, and then another one right in the stomach. Those who watched, and I can say that this is a real battle of monsters. And then their heads flew off their shoulders. Only Edward, who managed to protect himself with his magic, called. However, after only 2 seconds, Xiao Gangyu began to slowly destroy it. When he succeeded, he tried to finish off Edward, but a monster appeared and threw him back. Xiao Gangyu prepared to engage in combat with this formless man, but Huan stopped them. And with a smile, he declared that Xiao Gangyu should not fight with them. Xiao Gangyu looked at the guy, and Huang said that he was sure that Xiao Gangyu was hiding something. Is he holding back his powers because of his superiors? Xiao Gangyu didn't answer, and the guy raised his right hand up saying that he would create a platform just for the two of them. For a second, there was complete silence. And then the whole prison turned into ruins. The chief and the officers who stood above all fell to their knees. After that, unexpectedly, Xiao Gangyu enveloped them with his power, and also protected all those who were not criminals. Then, using his power, he sent them into the air to protect them from the explosion. The guy with white hair noticed. And you said that it's just amazing that he was able, at such a distance, to identify all the survivors. Shinka turned around and said that it was time for them to leave. For a moment, Xiao Gangyu was transported to the center of the city, and just as quickly disappeared. People around didn't understand what had just happened. Xiao Gangyu is back in prison again, or rather, to the place where she was before. He was left alone with his opponent, Shinka, and several of their challengers remained to watch this fight. Shinka raised her finger and said that he shouldn't be disturbed and that they should just watch first. The reason why she was able to hold off the third and fourth floor criminals that Shinka couldn't handle was because she offered each of them what they wanted. Meanwhile, Xiao Gangyu was beating up the blonde guy. The difference between their strength was too great. However, the white-haired guy still stood on his feet. He didn't understand why Xiao Gangyu was silent and asked, does he really not want to communicate when he's in this form? Huang looked at our hero with crazy eyes and smilingly declared that the meatball in his hand was our hero's brother. As soon as he said this, our hero's strength reached a completely different level. In a mad fit of rage, he rushed forward. Huang prepared for this attack and used his power to raise the air a huge number of spikes. However, Xiao Gangyu destroyed them all with one blow. Then, Xiao Gangyu noticed that the white-haired guy had thrown the meatball from brother along with those spikes. Xiao Gangyu tried to hit him, but he hesitated for a second. And then this ball flew straight into his stomach. Huang took back the meatball and said it was simply delicious. The entire Xiao Gangyu is completely powerless against this piece of meat. Smiling, he looked at the meatball again and said, will Xiao Gangyu not attack him if he eats this? After thinking for a bit, the white-haired guy decided that such a huge piece simply wouldn't fit in him, so it needed to be made a little smaller. However, as soon as he said this, Xiao Gangyu immediately attacked him. After that, he threw the guy with white hair to the ground and swung his hand, preparing to finish him off. A moment later, everyone standing nearby felt an incredible source of strength. After that, the girl said that she was very sorry to watch this fight because it would be great if they made peace, but this will never happen. Huang and Xiao Gangyu lay exhausted opposite each other. Everyone from above understood that the winner would soon be revealed. The first to stand up was Xiao Gangyu, and instantly he raised a wall of his power. Huang was surprised by how many abilities Xiao Gangyu had, and after thinking for a bit, he said that he really didn't have a single chance. Looking into the eyes of our hero, he asked, didn't he feel sad when he had to control his strength? Because he was with other scum. Xiao Gangyu said in a completely calm tone that Huang didn't know anything. Huang rolled his eyes and asked if this was his last attack since it looked so dangerous. And after that, he added that, as Shinka said, perhaps Huang should grow up a little, and then his strength will be enough to defeat our hero. Xiao Gangyu slowly replied that this would not happen because Huang would die here. Then everyone standing outside noticed that something had happened inside. Shinka couldn't resist and looked inside, watching in horror as Huang's body was tormented by this attack. She immediately used her abilities to save him from that place. After that, a guy with white dreadlocks came up and said that he would try to cure him. A few seconds later, the man said that this guy was quite good at combat because he used his abilities to protect vital points. After this, the man stood up and said that it was all over. He looked at his hand, which was completely enveloped in our hero's power, calling this ability simply sinister. After that, his hand immediately fell away from him. The man restored it in the blink of an eye and asked what they would do. The formless monster said that they had no choice and they had to kill him as soon as possible. Shinka. She looked down and said that she wanted to talk to him first. After some time, Seo Gangyu came to his senses and slowly stood up. He approached what was left of his brother, and then he picked up this meatball. At that very second, Shinka appeared in front of him. She sincerely said that it was not too late, and he could go with them. As soon as Seo Gangyu saw her, he activated his abilities. The girl, not understanding anything, looked straight into his eyes. And at that very moment, someone used their abilities on our hero. Edward announced that since the negotiations had failed, they had no choice but to kill our hero. He looked at the others and asked, "Does anyone have any objections?" Everyone else immediately responded that they completely agreed with him. The white monster immediately increased in size, and swinging, he struck with his hand at the place where So Gang-yu stood. Seo Gang-yu withstood the blow, holding his brother tightly to himself, starting with Hero, all the prisoners on the third and fourth floors. Otherwise, I will attack Seo Gang-yu. So Gang-yu held out for a while, but very soon his strength left him. The giant raised his leg, saying that the time had come. He had already almost crushed Seo Gang-yu, but not much was able to stop his foot. It was Huang, who was recently thought to be dead. Huang said, with a crazy smile, that Shinka was right. He needs to grow up a little more, because now he has a dream in his life. He wants to defeat Seo Gang-yu. After that, to everyone's surprise, he ordered the others not to kill Seo Gang-yu, since he would be the one to do it. Shinka ordered everyone to retreat. And with a smile, she said that the day before, they all agreed to listen to her. After this, they agreed with these words and went through the portals. Shinka was incredibly happy that Huang was alive. EMP attack incident at Rookless Prison. 8 prisoners from the 3rd floor, 5 from the 4th floor, and 3 from the 5th floor escaped. The old man looked at So Gang-yu and laughed and said that, as he predicted, the world was starting to go crazy, and the tavern will soon shake the entire globe. On the same day, broadcasting stopped on all screens around the world. And then the recording of the shank was played. The first words were that the new world welcomes all inhabitants. Shinka appeared in front of the people. The girl greeted everyone and announced that she would become the new Eve. She also introduced those who stood behind her. What is the Alpha World? World Alpha. This is the world that Shinka, who became Eve, will build to save the perishing human race. Who has the right to become part of the Alpha World? The conditions for becoming part of the Alpha World are as follows. First, you need to have strong abilities. Second, you should not protect those whose genes were not chosen. Third, you must be a healthy, fertile person. What will happen to those who do not meet the criteria? After thinking for a bit, Shinka said that she thinks that leaving the rejected genes in humanity is in itself a mortal sin. Therefore, the leak and the genes were not chosen and must be executed. Finally, Shinka said that over the next month they will be choosing neo-humans who will become part of the Alpha World and will send them invitations. Those who refuse them will be perceived as people who violate the already mentioned second condition, so they are going to execute them too. Finally, the recording stopped, leaving all of humanity in bewilderment. Bezet, the president of the world, in connection with the escape from the Ruckless prison and the broadcast shown to the whole world shortly thereafter, declared the meeting of the World Security Council open. Einheit, the leader of the Harmony Party, was the first to speak, saying that the warden had given So Gang-yu the right to roll up criminals at his own discretion without reporting to his superiors. A person cannot give another the right to execute anyone he wishes. After all, this is what caused incredible chaos and disorder. The leader of the Peace Party and also the former chairman of the Heroes Association stated that this guy was talking nonsense because the boss made the best decision in this situation, and everyone would have done the same as her if they had intelligence. The man immediately stated that they could have at least found time to report despite the urgency, to which the former chairman declared that even a moment could not be wasted, which is why she went to look for Seo Gang-yu, and he understands the reason for her actions. The Minister of Justice stated that although he considers it wrong for 2 people to have the right to take people's lives at their own discretion, the decision is entirely justified given the circumstances. The fire commissioner said he was concerned that people would be badly hurt by what was happening. The police chief responded by saying that they had already suffered and had not had a single free second since the broadcast had caused public safety problems. The Deputy Minister of National Defense said that this can hardly be considered a prison break incident and that they are now in the midst of a war. The former chairman immediately stated that they had been saying for a long time that it was time to kill them. He also said that if he were still the chairman of the Hero Association at that time, they would have died before it was necessary, just as he cannot believe that they themselves created a threat by leaving the captured criminals alive. Ever since Lyosa took over the Hero Association, the world has gone to hell. However, at the table, they immediately expressed a different opinion and stated that the former chairman was not so white because the decisions he made as chairman could not be called correct, and it was enough to look at the heroes of that time. After all, most of his charges were out of their minds. The former chairman immediately countered and said that the proof was the fact that since Lausa became the head of the association, those who could have become heroes turned into villains and caused a lot of harm, so her tactics were even more unwise. The president of the world finally took the floor and said that he would be interested to know what Laos would say now. After all, instead of the head of the Association of Heroes, there is now a free place. When the meeting was over, the former chairman returned to his limousine and told his driver that everything had gone terribly, and it was all because of Laos. After she became the chairperson of the Hero Association, all the members split up. The supporters of the correction included the Harmony Party, the Fire Commissioner, the Deputy Minister of National Defense and the Chairman of the Heroes Association, and the supporters of punishment, which included him and the Chief of Police, and also the Minister of Justice, who remains neutral. And it turns out that even the credited advantage, the opinion of the supporters of punishment, was not paid attention to. And even the current president was more inclined to the opinion of the head of the Association of Heroes. But now this place is empty, and they need to put one of their people there. For opinions to be taken into account, a 3-to-3 ratio is sufficient. After thinking for a moment, the former chairman said that it was for this very reason that they were now going to meet with the former hero of equality, named Seo Gang-yu. The guard said that this man was quite close to Lausa, to which the man said with a smile that the situation had changed and now he was on the other side. Meanwhile, Seo Gang-yu was on the operating table, and finally he came to consciousness. He saw his previous team in front of him and didn't understand why they all left without giving an answer to his question. Why shouldn't heroes kill villains? Suddenly he woke up, all wet, and looking around, he realized that he was in a ward, and he saw Mago's student in front of him. The girl immediately asked him if he was okay. Seo Gang-yu looked at her menacingly, saying that he was not okay at all. Then he seemed to look down and say that he should have killed them all on the spot, but he failed. Looking at the girl, he asked, "Did she really come here to say, like the others, that it's wrong to kill villains?" The girl remained silent and said that it was necessary to create a new association of heroes and choose people for renewed equality. She also said that she is currently acting as the chairman of the Hero Association, but due to upcoming changes, they will need a hero to lead them further. Therefore, they thought of choosing our hero as the hero of the former equality to be the head of the Hero Association. Seo Gang-yu briefly replied that he was no longer a hero. Another person appeared in the ward from here. The former chairman said with a smile that Seo Gang-yu is now a prison officer. The man began to slowly approach and say that Seo Gang-yu had gone through a lot, executing criminals on his own. But now he would no longer have to do this. The man said with a smile that he would soon become the chairman of the Hero Association and that in the future he planned to involve the heroes in the destruction of criminals. Seo Gang-yu asked what the man meant, since he is the leader of the Peace Party, to which the former chairman replied that he is soon taking up this post in order to participate in the elections for the position of chairman of the Hero Association. The man straightened his jacket and asked if Seo Gang-yu was interested in this position, but he stated that he no longer needed it and had come here just to visit him and say hello. Immediately after these words, he turned around and started to leave, saying that he hoped that Seo Gang-yu would soon recover sufficiently and be discharged. As soon as the man left, Seo Gang-yu looked at the girl and said that he was tired of the cat, so she should leave. The chairman returned to the limousine and said that he thought everyone had perked up, and that many would probably be looking for Seo Gang-yu. Since the ability appeared, there was too much power in the hands of certain individuals, and they began to rely on people who were better at sleeping than the army and the police. VSB will most likely discuss how Seo Gang-yu was not a criminal, and whether he should be given such a right in the future because, if we judge by the current law, then the actions were fundamentally wrong. At the next meeting, the former chairman stated that they all provide no information, that they can make any decisions but only talk about idealism. The man said that they needed to vote, and the people should decide for themselves whether Seo Gang-yu should be given the right to carry out executions or not. Are you for or against a man named Seo Gang Yu being given the power to carry out the death penalty? One of the council members immediately stood up and said that it was too dangerous to leave such a decision to the discretion of the majority vote. The former chairman asked, does he really look down on his citizens? After this, he stated that he understood perfectly well why he was behaving this way, because he was not confident in his win. The president of the world asked for silence and said that he agreed with this. 2 weeks later, the secretary announced that the voting results were 80% for and 12% against. Arguments immediately began, but the president asked for Seo Gang Yu to be called here. That same evening, the president met with Seo Gang Yu. Seo Gang Yu said that he understood why he was called here and declared that he would follow the results of the vote and personally execute them all. The president looked at the hero and asked what he would do if the votes were distributed the other way around. Seo Gang Yu replied that in that case he would kill them all and surrender to the police. After that, the president looked him in the eye and asked what he thought she would do if she were here. Seo Gang Yu bowed his head and said that in order to get an answer, he had to ask her himself. Finally, the president asked our hero, when all this is over, will he become a hero again? Seo Gang Yu turned around and started to leave, saying at the end that he didn't know the future. The next day, all the newspapers wrote that a special law had been passed for Seo Gang Yu. The former chairman said with a smile on his face that with such a start, they would gradually return everything to normal. Meanwhile, Seo Gang Yu's brother's wife shed tears over the remains of her young man. The criminals also knew about this and said that the rules of the game would change as the game progressed. And now her executioners are obliged to enter the war. Soon after, in Spain and Portugal, the world heard of a blue circle appearing when a letter was delivered stating that this is an invitation, and also about a group of 4 criminals who travel with the help of these portals and destroy cities. On this day, Shinka appeared on all screens, saying that from this day on the execution begins. Those whose genes did not pass the selection. At the same meeting, the secretary announced that materials had arrived regarding the recent incident. Summoner Edward, a villain captured by the hero of Manga Equality. He imprints the stolen abilities onto his body in the form of tattoos. Ho, physical strength. Villainous caught by Equality hero Joe. Has the ability to transform into a fox demon. Hyun Jun Young, a summoner, can summon a mythical creature. Maurice, the special one, has very complex abilities. All of them were sent to Portugal with the purpose of destroying unsuitable genes and bringing those who received an invitation to the Alpha world. Shinka also said that in order to make it easier for invitees to join, they need to focus on attracting attention and not on executions. After all, they will always have time to destroy bad genes. In a few minutes, the city turned into ruins. Edward, despite Eva's orders, went off on his own, sadly noting that he hadn't changed at all even after leaving prison. And this upset him. After all, no matter how much he destroys, his abilities do not grow and it is simply a damned talent. Suddenly he was attacked but managed to raise his shield. Looking up, he saw a huge bunny. Rifus looked at him with hatred and asked, has he really not learned anything yet? The guy replied that the girl had arrived just in time. In Lisbon, there was a school of abilities where children told their teachers that they were scared now because of what was happening in the world. Boris smiled and said that no matter what happens, the teacher will protect them. So now they must investigate them and follow him into hiding. Suddenly, one of Shinki's executioners appeared behind her and slowly began clapping. All the children immediately got up from their seats and started running away. The teacher took a defensive stance and told them to hide behind him. The girl came down from the desk and said that he need not be afraid because she knew that he also received an invitation from Lady Eva. The man used his aura and protected the other children by holding them close to him, and said that not a single student would be sent to them. Sadly, the girl with the umbrella said that it turns out that he is not as smart as she thought. School of Abilities is created in different parts of the world under the leadership of Lausa and Mago to train special children after the incident with Misha. Here, children learn from teachers and heroes, communication, mastery of abilities, and control. Maurice's special attack is known as Etiquette. It is activated against those who are lower in status than it and cannot impose restrictions or harm. The girl looked at everyone around and said that if she saw any stupidity, she would immediately kill. A typical ability. Strong, weak, weak, strong. The girl ordered the 3 children who received the invitation to do so forward. She said that they were all special and that they would unite in the world created by the queen. One of the children asked in surprise, is she really talking about the woman from television? The girl said that it was so and smiling began to praise her, but the child who asked this question answered that in that case he was not going to go with them. The guy started shouting that the woman said that harm should be done to those who don't have abilities. But he has many friends without abilities, and he won't let them be harmed. The other girls said that their mom and dad also don't have abilities, so that doesn't mean they're bad. The children quietly said that the teacher said that you can't discriminate and hate those who are different. And people who try to solve problems with abilities instead of talking are also bad. The girl who listened to all this smiled and said that only in this case would they have to die. After this, jars immediately appeared on their necks and began to squeeze them. However, Profe had the ability to absorb blows. He is also known as the hero bodyguard. Now he used his ability to protect all these children. Seeing this, the girl said that she now understands why Shinka sent him an invitation because this is the ideal ability for a bodyguard. After thinking for a bit, she added that for Ava's comfort, a bodyguard is needed so killing him would be wasteful. Maurice slowly walked up to her and said that he knew her very well and also remembered her from her youth. However, the girl immediately raised her hand up and asked him to shut up because it was very rude to try to scatter the past, because she did not come here to talk. And by order of the queen, she loudly declared that he should hand over the children, and she would spare him. However, the teacher immediately replied that he would not do this. The girl looked at them together and asked, "Is it possible that his biological child is among them?" The guy replied that this was not so. The girl looked at him in surprise and asked what the reason was, to which the man replied that it was only because he was a teacher. Profe works as a teacher at the School of Ability, and he has a defensive power that can withstand attacks from the prisoners on the third and fourth floors for a long time. But during the presidency of the former chairman, it did not rise above the fifth level. And the reason was that he didn't have the destructive ability to kill heroes. But after Lyosa became the president of the association, she offered him to work as a teacher at the School of Abilities. The man asked if he was being kicked out because his ability was really not suitable for a hero, to which Lyosa smiled and said that it was not so, and that meant that she wanted him to be both a teacher and a hero. Looking up, she said that there is nothing more important than teaching children, so it should be entrusted to the best hero. To which he replied that it was not suitable for him in that case. The girl asked where else she could find such an outstanding hero as he was. The man looked at her in surprise and she explained to him that she saw before her a hero who was protecting his comrades at the cost of his life. So now he stands before an opponent who is many times stronger than him and says that if the world returns to chaos, then such unfortunate children as her will continue to be born. Hearing these words, her face changed with anger and she asked what he even knew about her. He stated that as he had already said, they all knew her well. The girl became even more angry and directed her attack at him, saying that he should not make her laugh with such stupid words. The man was immediately attacked. He used his ability to protect the children and took all the damage on himself. Meanwhile, the crazy girl said that they would all die. Suddenly, she felt someone's shoe on her head. It was Seo Gang Yu who pinned her head to the floor a moment later. Seo Gang Yu stood right above her, telling her that she should bring the madman right here. Immediately after these words, she used her ability and created a guillotine. However, Seo Gang Yu easily destroyed it, and then he hit her in the face again. Looking back, Seo Gang Yu said that the teacher should take the children and run away from here as quickly as possible. Seo Gang Yu hit the girl again a few times, and her aura was divorced. After that, he lifted her up with one hand, but unexpectedly, the girl used her true form. Two invisible gentlemen appeared behind our hero. She herself stood up and waved her umbrella. To create invisible protection for yourself. Lady Maud. This is Morris's true form. When activated, she can use special abilities on those who perceive her as a lady. However, she understood that her abilities would work on someone who could resist even the Shinki's spatial abilities. So now it's just a tactic to drag out the battle. She was stalling for time so that the others could complete the mission and return. Seo Gang Yu began to slowly approach her, and she raised her hands and said that she knew where Shinka was. To which Seo Gang Yu replied that he didn't need her location. He can simply bring the corpse of his enemy and have it examined to find out everything. She decided to buy time and asked what he would do when he found her, because he would have to confront not a single person, because this time the queen would definitely not leave him alive. Seo Gang Yu didn't answer this question and only summoned his power. For you, she is all this. The girl decided that the only option was to commit suicide, and right now she must die and leave no trace. Meanwhile, Seo Gang Yu had already asked for her. However, Shinka herself suddenly appeared. She asked with a smile, "Did Seo Gang Yu really want to see her that much?" As soon as she appeared, the hero immediately entered his combat form. After that, Seo Gang Yu destroyed her barrier with one blow and declared that he would kill her. Shinka said with a smile that she would deal with this, and her subordinate should go and deal with those who rejected the invitation. After that, she was instantly moved, but Seo Gang Yu still managed to deal damage to her. Meanwhile, the teacher and the others began to run away. Maurice wanted to attack, but the wound was too severe and one of the girls stopped and looked at her. After that, she pointed her finger and said that it was exactly like in the textbook. Meanwhile, Wu Seo Gang Yu used his most devastating ability right away, and slowly he declared that her grave would be here. Shinka smiled and wanted to say that in order to use this ability, he needs to be in a special form. However, now he is straining himself too much. But before she could finish speaking, Seo Gang Yu attacked her with his powers. Suddenly, he noticed that she used her techniques to redirect this attack. Shinka said she was surprised that his power didn't work on him. Then she looked back and called for her two assistants. Once inside, they immediately said that it would have been better to stay at home. Canis stated that it was impossible to simply drag out time and not kill him, because they would not be able to withstand it. After that, Shinka said with a smile that they could just run away. She tried to open the portal, but it didn't work. Seo Gang Yu looked at her angrily and declared that this would be her grave. The Dark Sky Coffin is a space created by using all of Seo Gang Yu's abilities, and it is impossible to exit from it. When Shinka was fighting alongside Huang, she was able to use the power from outside to pull that guy out. But now that she's inside, she can't get out. Seo Gang Yu didn't waste any time, and instead, he swung his fist at her completely. The girl immediately raised her shield, which was immediately destroyed. Looking at this, she decided that there was no way out, and now she had to kill our hero. At that moment, everyone felt a strange tension. Looking back, So Gang Yu saw the same old man from the 5th floor. The old man smiled and said that So Gan Yu is strong, but he is still incomparable. Looking at him, Shinka asked what kind of nonsense is this? However, while she was screaming, the old man had already approached her. The girl managed to use teleportation and asked why he was attacking her, to which the old man replied that she was interfering in a conversation between men. Blood started flowing from her nose, and she ordered her assistants to destroy him, saying that the old man was already on his last legs. To which the man only laughed and said that he was still standing firmly on his feet. Shinka used her abilities and directed them at this old man. However, a second later he appeared behind her. The man stated that she really did have a powerful ability, and she is not inferior in strength to Huang. After that, he struck her once and threw her back, saying that they both had the same problem. The shank, covered in blood, fell to the floor, and the old man said that they were so carried away by their abilities that they neglected training their bodies. Looking at her, he declared that the body in which the soul warms is the true source of strength. Hearing these words, Shinka took them as an insult and developed enormous speed, traveling through her portals together with her assistants. They began to attack him rapidly. However, the old man fought off every blow. Smiling, the man said that, to his delight, at least she trained her subordinates diligently. Seo Gang Yu was momentarily taken aback by this unexpectedness, but observing the situation, he quickly decided what to do. He teamed up with Kingston to kill that woman. At headquarters, they already knew that this old man had appeared. The others said that this guy had always been a weirdo and it seemed like he had developed a new interest. The president stated that Seo Gang Yu was now in danger, to which he was told that everything was fine. Meanwhile, Maurice asked with a smile why her past was written in the textbook. The teacher didn't answer and she got angry and said that it was extremely disgusting. Suddenly, unexpectedly, the teacher told us that the textbooks described the past of all the prisoners in Ruckless. She angrily asked, "Is it really to mock the losers?" To which the teacher replied that it was not mockery but an attempt to understand. When they heard that Laos and Mago were creating a school of abilities, one overseer came to them. It was Seo Gang Yu, who was working as a prison guard at the time. He put forward the idea of adding criminology as a compulsory subject. The others were hesitant because it was too harsh for children. However, Seo Gang Yu said that they should know this. Seo Gang Yu confidently said that the current generation will have to lead the society of the future, and they must tell them about the conditions in which criminals lived and whether the public could have prevented these crimes or why they could not. Everyone should explain this to children, because this is not an excuse for criminals. They are on each fairly, and if at least 1%, the reasons in society they should understand it and move on to prevent the tragedy as much as possible. Therefore, they need to understand the criminals. Maurice laughed and asked, what was it like digging into their past? Suddenly, the former chairman appeared and said that the teacher was completely hopeless and should have been gotten rid of during his reign. The teacher looked at the man in surprise, while the former chairman told the children that they had been taught poorly and that now they would really be told the truth. The man straightened his tie and declared that having a history as a criminal was a luxury. Those who are driven by emotions try to blame the environment and society for the emergence of criminals, thereby calling for sympathy for them. However, criminals were born that way. They are just mutants, a cancerous tumor. The chairman rolled up his sleeves and said that the cancer needed to be cut out. After that, the man took out his watch and said that he would see if she could endure it for at least 10 minutes first. Immediately after that, he launched a devastating blow at great speed. The girl immediately used her defense and called him a bastard. However, immediately after that, he approached and dealt another blow, destroying her defense. And then he used acceleration and made a JoJo reference. After a series of these blows, he drank out half of her teeth. He continued to beat her with his knee, not giving her a chance to breathe. And finally, she was able to find a moment to use her ability. Behind the former chairman, Invisible Gentleman immediately appeared. However, using the acceleration, the former chairman immediately dealt with them, and he delivered another crushing blow right into the woman's face. He then signed to her and sent her flying into the air with an elbow. He jumped high enough and hit her with his hands a few more times, and he continued to beat her in front of the children. They all stood and watched it, unable to do anything. After a few more minutes, the chairman finally threw her body to the ground. After that, he raised his leg and hit her in the stomach with all his might. Looking at his watch, the man said that he still had about 3 minutes left. Lying on the ground, the girl asked, "Is this really the ability to speed up time?" Leaning over her, he took her head and said that when he uses his power, he can manipulate the flow of time for himself and everything he touches, be it an object or a living being. This means that he can also slow it down. Slowing down time, he began to slowly squeeze her head and say that now she would slowly and painfully die. Just one moment flew by. But for Morris, it felt like an eternity. After this, the former chairman stood up and said that he was very sorry. After all, if the situation had been calm, he would have spent much more time on it. Suddenly, the girl started laughing. The man picked her up and asked, "Has the fear of death driven her crazy?" With a smile, the woman said that she would not lie and say that he was not afraid to die. But she was not laughing because of this, because she did not lag behind, that she would complete the mission exactly like this. The chairman looked at her in surprise and asked what she was talking about. Laughing again, she said that if she dies, then all the bastards associated with her abilities will die after her. This girl's special power is a sacrificial burial. Hearing these words, the teacher asked her to cancel this ability. Meanwhile, the old man continued to fight with the trio. He dealt with them with incredible ease, and even their sharp and unexpected attacks could not change anything. It was as if he was throwing children around. After a few more blows, he said they were just arrogant little bastards. Looking down at them, he said that they had no control over their powers. After that, he sped up and said that he would make sure that they never thought like that again. After this attack, he said that they could ask their healer to put their hands back on because he was a pretty skilled guy. Meanwhile, the Shank was left alone. She prepared to fight this old man, but suddenly received an unexpected blow from Seo Gang Yu. Having fallen to the ground, she immediately grabbed her sore spot. However, Seo Gang Yu had no intention of giving her a chance to rest and immediately pounced on her again. She tried to use her abilities, but Seo Gang Yu destroyed her shields, and having reached her body, he delivered a crushing blow with his left foot. Falling to the ground, in front of him, she said that this simply could not be. She begged him to think again, but Seo Gang Yu didn't listen to her and continued to beat her. Blow after blow, he destroyed her internal organs. Her assistants could do nothing but watch all this. Finally, Seo Gang Yu absorbed all his strength into his left hand and swung it to finish off the Shinka. With tears in her eyes, the woman screamed that she could not die here. And suddenly, the old man stopped our hero. Seo Gang Yu looked at him in surprise. And grandfather said that before Seo Gang Yu did not kill with only his strength, therefore the invincible should not receive help. Meanwhile, the chairman asked what sacrificial ability means. Smiling, she said that it would activate as soon as the owner died. The chairman told the teacher and the children to listen carefully now. He looked back and said that he was expressing his regrets in advance. The teacher couldn't believe what was about to happen. However, the former chairman did not hesitate to finish off this woman. There was complete imperturbability on his face. Throwing her on the floor, he said that if they don't collect this woman, heal her, and release her powers before killing her, then they will be able to survive. But if by some chance they save her and then lose her, countless people will suffer again. So it was better to kill her right here and now and sacrifice myself. The former chairman spread his arms and said that sacrifices for the common good are simply necessary. After this, the man touched the watch and said that he thanked them for their sacrifices.